The Old Testament is filled with a bunch of exciting characters. Today's Bible story comes from the book of Ruth, and it's a story about a woman named, you guessed it, Ruth. The story begins with a terrible situation. There was a lady named Naomi, and she had a husband and 2 sons. They lived in Israel, but there was a famine in the land. There was no food and no rain, and so they left and went to a nearby nation called Moab. Now, in the land of Moab, things were a little bit better there. Naomi and her husband and 2 sons lived there until her sons were married. But then another tragedy happened. Naomi's husband and 2 sons died. That's right, they all died, and Naomi was left alone in a foreign land. She decided that she would leave Moab and return to Israel. Well, her daughters-in-law were sad that she was leaving and did not want to say goodbye. She told them that they should try and make a new life without her. One daughter-in-law named Orpah stayed in Moab, but the other daughter-in-law named Ruth would not leave Naomi's side. She told her she would go with her wherever she went. And so Ruth and Naomi went to Israel. Now, since these 2 ladies didn't have husbands and didn't have jobs, they were very poor, and they didn't have any food. And so Naomi and Ruth needed food, and Ruth decided she would go look for work. She went out with the other poor people and picked up leftover food in the fields. This was hard work, but she didn't want to see her mother-in-law, Naomi, go hungry. Ruth worked most of the day in the field, and then the owner of the field came to check on his workers. When he got there, he saw Ruth out in the field working very hard. He asked around to find out who this lady was, and they told him her name was Ruth, and she was a very hard worker, and that she was trying to help her mother-in-law, Naomi. But the man who owned the field was named Boaz, and Boaz was very impressed with Ruth. He invited her to come and eat lunch with he and his workers. He even gave her some extra food to take with her to give to Naomi. Ruth went home and shared with Naomi, and they rejoiced together that the Lord had blessed them through Boaz. Well, time went on, and Boaz and Ruth continued to learn more about each other. Eventually, Naomi told Ruth that she should ask Boaz to help her in a more serious way. They came up with a plan to get Boaz's attention. After the harvest, Boaz was sleeping on the threshing floor with his other workers and with all the food. Ruth went out there in the middle of the night to meet with him. She sat down next to where he was sleeping, and he woke up suddenly, and Ruth was right there. She asked him to protect her and provide for her and Naomi. Boaz was excited because he wanted to help, but there was a small problem. Naomi had another relative that was supposed to help before Boaz. He told Ruth not to worry about it, that he would work real hard to make everything come together so he could take care of her. The next day, Boaz went to the city gates, and he called to the man who was the closer relative, and they sat down and talked together. Boaz brought up the situation with Ruth, and he asked the other man if he was going to help. At first, the other man said he would help, but then he realized that meant he would need to marry Ruth, and he was already married, and he didn't think it was a good idea for him. This was great news for Boaz. This meant that he was the one next in line to take care of Ruth and Naomi. Boaz went to Ruth, and they were married. It was a wonderful time for both of them, and they took care of Naomi, and then they had a little boy named Obed. The exciting thing about this story is that God continued to work through this special family. Obed had a son named Jesse, and Jesse had a son named David. He would become the greatest king that Israel had, and eventually even Jesus was born as a result of this family. This story reminds us that no matter what's going on in life, God takes care of His children, and He has a plan that He's working out, even in the hard times. I hope that as you hear this story and you read it in the Bible, you're reminded that God can take care of you no matter what.